Hello everybody, welcome to Your Capital What's Up. I'm Chuck Wiger, your area state senator. Thank you very much for watching. Today we're going to visit with Claudia Nicholson, the director of the North Star Scouts Museum in North St. Paul. Welcome to our show, Claudia.
Thank you, Chuck.
And you have a great story to tell at the museum, and we're going to have you start out by just telling us about the museum and where it's at in North St. Paul on 7th, and then about the mission, and we'll engage in a very nice conversation.
Okay. The North Star Museum of Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting is an independent history museum, and we use scouting as a lens to look at the past. So we do talk a lot about specific scouting history, but what we're trying to do is put it in a larger historical context. These stories are not very often told outside the intimate confines of the tent or the campfire or the late night meeting. And so one of the things we have the opportunity to do is preserve and then tell those stories back to people who are involved in scouting. We preserve, we collect, we preserve, we share, and we interpret the history and significance of Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting. We're a regional museum of the upper Midwest, so we do North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and a little bit of bleed over into Nebraska because we got some artifacts with very, very good stories.
Okay, and again, I think most people may know, but the museum is in North St. Paul on the Main Street, 7th, about 1,000 feet or so west of Highway 120.
Right.
Not too far from the Legion, so I think people get the spot. And for the old timers, it used to be the library in North St. Paul.
That's exactly right.
I would have gone to the library.
And while the museum was founded in 1976, in 2006, when we opened to the public there, that was the first time that we had a building that was truly ours that we owned. So it was a big step for the museum to come into North St. Paul and to get that building from the county.
Yes. So great partnership. And what would be some of the highlights regarding scouting that are so important that you reflect in the museum?
Well, the men who founded the museum were all Boy Scout people, so they collected from their friends, and they had been involved in scouting beginning in the teens. Boy Scouting was established in the U.S. and in St. Paul in 1910. So these men had been involved very early on. So we have a really strong collection of Boy Scout material, especially between 1920 and 1960 or 70. We have a shorter relationship with the Girl Scouts. We started working with them around 2000, 2001 when the 90th anniversary of Girl Scouting in the United States was coming up. Actually, this year I think is the 100th anniversary of Girl Scouting in St. Paul. I was going somewhere with that.
But you have a lot.
You can edit this, right?
But there's great displays that help preserve these memories that are going back a century.
Yeah, we tell a lot of stories. In fact, this is one of the fabulous things that we have in our collection. This is a medallion that was given to the Boy Scouts in St. Paul, the Boy Scout Council in St. Paul in 1917. And it was given to them it says for valiant service, but what they did is they sold a higher dollar value of Liberty Loan bonds than any other Boy Scout council in the country during the second Liberty Loan campaign. The object by itself is great. This is bronze. It was done by a designer who was more well known for architectural kinds of objects like this.
Yes.
I am pretty sure that there are maybe only 4 or 5 of them in the United States. There were 4 Liberty Loan campaigns and the Victory Liberty Loan campaign, so they only gave out one for each one. The Boy Scouts in St. Paul during the second Liberty Loan campaign sold $6.8 million in war bonds in 1917 dollars, which today might be 60 million or 90 million or 110 million. It depends on the inflation calculator. It was a stunning achievement. And how long do you think it took them to do this? Can you guess?
Well, I'm thinking they did it pretty quick, but
it was a month.
Yes,
the month of October.
Because 1917, I know a lot's going on with the war, and So
Right.
hats off.
And so this thing by itself is a great object, but it is the story behind it that
Yes.
really is of value to our visitors.
Yes.
I have explained to more Cub Scouts what a bond is than I care to remember, and I would venture to say that 4 or 5 of them understood it. We have a lot of things like
Well, a bond
this.
is all about freedom.
Yeah.
And, there were a lot of things, just in North St. Paul, I know that was being done too for people just for the sacrifice. And,
Right.
freedom was on the line.
Right, right.
And so, the Scouts obviously responded and,
Well, when Boy Scouting was brand new, it was about community service and doing a good turn. Those were the values that BSA was promoting most heavily. And so the War Bond campaign fit in very nicely with what the Boy Scouts wanted to do anyway. Boy Scouting was brand new in the United States, and the boys were out on the streets. There are photographs of boys on the streets of St. Paul accosting
Yes.
businessmen to sell the war bonds. They also planted gardens.
yes.
This was the original Victory Garden.
Victory Garden, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And they did a lot of that, and boys would get an individual medal for their uniform that said that they had participated in the gardening campaign. And they also collected fruit pits, stone fruit pits, like apricots and
Yes.
Nectarines and peaches, because the pit material was burned to make activated charcoal for gas
Yes.
masks. You remember World War I was trench and gas warfare, so everyone needed a gas mask. So the Boy Scouts really, this is how they kind of burst onto the national scene as an organization devoted to service to country and community.
Thanks for sharing that medallion.
Oh.
Again, that's almost 100 years old, so very
It's
special.
one of the coolest artifacts that we have in the collection, and it is certainly unique. One for the third Liberty Loan campaign came up on eBay a couple of years ago and sold for something like $2,500. But how do you put a price on something that is so unique and so rooted in our community?
Yes.
So it's a pretty great thing. Another wonderful thing that we're able to do is we collect papers from people. We collect photographs. We collect films. I would be willing to swear that every other Boy Scout in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s went out with a movie camera in their backpack and filmed a lot of the activities that we were doing, and we have some fabulous films. But we also have a manuscript that was written in 1931 by a kid from St. Paul, and it chronicles a trip that he took when he was 16, 17 years old with some other scouts from St. Paul to San Francisco.
Oh,
They walked, they hiked,
okay.
dragging a 900-pound trek cart with them. And in 1931, using a journal that he had, and
How old were they?
well, they were 16, 17 years old.
Okay.
They were sort of older teenagers.
Okay.
In 1931, using his original journal and some photographs, he wrote a narrative of that trip. And it is one of the most amazing stories that I have ever read. And
Oh,
in 1931, he was, well, if he was 17, he was, 30, in his early 30s. And it was beautifully written.
Mhm.
And we're doing research on it, and I hope that someday the manuscript would form the core of a book that would allow us to tell another one of these stories. And if
Yes.
it were not for the museum, this story would have been family lore in a couple of families,
Yeah.
and that would be it. No one else would know about it. So it's one of the things that we are able to do collectively that individuals can't necessarily do on their own.
Great. Now, do you have public hours then?
We do.
And so, share, I know that the Scouts, there's a number of activities for the boys and the girls. Scouts, for their programs that interface with the museum, but for the general public, if they want to stop by or provide support,
We
what would they
throw
do?
open the doors and turn on the lights from 1 to 5 p.m. Wednesday through Friday and 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. However, I am full-time, I have another full-time employee, we're always there. Tuesday through Saturday, there's always someone at the museum all day long. We have a lot of people that come to us and bring their family artifacts, their family scouting artifacts, and they can come in anytime. Tuesday, sometimes they find the doors locked, but we're always there. So they can call us on the phone and make an appointment and come in and show us the things that they have. And a lot of wonderful things have walked in the door.
Wonderful.
And it's because we exist. You know, these things might have been disposed of or kept in the family. And it's important to us to be able to gather those so that we can share the stories.
Yeah. And do you have relationships then with the historical societies, whether it's the North St. Paul, or you go well beyond in your market, but
Well,
or with the schools? You know, there's so many other groups that would have an interest in what you do.
We're working on that. We are working on that. One of my long-term goals is to be able to hire someone to travel around the state and document the Boy Scout and Girl Scout collections in all of the county and local historical societies. You know,
Yes.
that's where the great local photographs are. That's where sometimes if a troop goes out of business or something like that, somebody ends up with all the paper. And sometimes they give it to a local historical society, and I'd like to uncover those things and find out where the uniforms are and all of that stuff, so that we could do exhibits that were based on more than just what's in our collection, which is large and very good in many respects, but it needs, sometimes we need to supplement it with other stuff. There's some great scouting stories in the local area that
Yes.
we need to catch.
And any exhibit that's being planned for the future that you can share?
We have an opening on Saturday, the 26th. We are opening the first phase of a hands-on exhibit for kids called Adventures in Campcraft. And this
okay.
exhibit will be an opportunity for them to learn and practice some of the skills that boys and girls used to learn, but they don't necessarily do anymore in scouting. We have a
Yes.
really great unit on different kinds of measurement, line of sight measurement, pacing, using different parts of your body. You know, if you know what the spread is between your thumb and your little finger, you can measure things like that.
Yes.
To tell how far away a storm is, a thunderstorm is, by counting the time between the lightning strike and the
Yes.
clap of thunder and all of
Is
that.
it still 1 second a mile?
I think so.
Or at
think
least
it
that's
is.
what I remember.
There's some division involved in here.
Okay.
When we were developing the exhibit, someone said, well, why don't we just put a calculator there? And we were all
Okay.
like, no! We gave them a chalkboard and some
Okay.
chalk, because we want them to actually do the long division or have their grown-up do the long division.
Okay.
There's a unit on trail signs, which
Yes.
hardly anybody uses anymore, but this will be an opportunity for one kid to lay a trail around the museum and have their buddy come along behind them and follow the trail and pick up all this stuff.
Yes.
In the next couple of years, next 2 years, we're going to do knots and lashing, we're going to do laying of fire, we're going to do identifying plants and animals by the things they leave behind or the shape of the leaves or something like that. You know, kids need to be taught how to observe.
This is so helpful for everybody.
Well, it is,
And
it is.
so-
I mean,
and
it's,
I hope our schools and others, all of them are, you know, working to
We're-
find out how they can
we are
partner.
making contact and encouraging them to bring their students over just to do these activities.
Yes.
Every kid needs to be taught how to observe. Every adult needs to be taught how to observe. We
Yeah.
go through life pretty obliviously,
Yes.
looking down at our phones and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know.
it's so important for people to know that this museum is providing active engagement and activities that can help you, in addition to respecting great memories of the past and preserving that, but you can get some hands-on experience on things right now.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. You know, we collect the past. We're concerned with the future, just like the Boy Scouts are and just like the Girl Scouts are, but we're
Yes.
trying to draw a through line through the present, from the past to the future. And we have the opportunity to do that. In a couple of weeks, we're opening another exhibit on the Order of the Arrow, which is the Boy Scouting Camping Honor Society, which just has celebrated its 100th anniversary this year.
Wonderful.
The anniversary ends at the end of September, I believe, so we are kicking, we are celebrating the end of their year rather than the beginning of their year, because this took a little bit longer than we thought. But we have some really large artifacts. We've got a gigantic red arrow hanging from the ceiling, and we have some very large other artifacts that we want to hang. So there's going to be some really impressive stuff in this exhibit, and that's opening on October 10th. So those are the two new ones. We have a long way to go.
Well, yeah, I know it's going to be very well done. And, you know, tell us about your path to becoming the director.
Oh my goodness. Well,
You can start wherever you'd like.
I was a Girl Scout when I was
Great.
a girl.
I wanted to know that.
In for about 9 years.
What
And
community where was that?
I grew up in Pumpton Lakes, New Jersey.
Where?
Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. I'm a
Okay.
carpetbagger.
Well, no, we're pleased to have you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Pumpton Lakes, and what were some of your memories there as a scout?
Well, I would not have camped if it was not for Girl Scouting, because I didn't come from a camping family. I had opportunities to go to Washington, D.C. and meet my elected representative and deliver a bag of petitions to him. We went on some great field trips. We went to Boston and toured around. We went to Washington, D.C. Those are some of the memories.
Yeah.
And we sang. We sang a lot. I have a piano in the museum. Occasionally someone will sit down and play it, but for me, my Girl Scout experience was about singing. And we've been doing a summertime sing around the campfire event for Girl Scouts for a couple of years now, and we've got one coming up for adults in November to sing some of the old camp songs. Amazingly, if you look at a Girl Scout songbook and a Boy Scout songbook, there's a lot of overlap there.
Good.
You wouldn't think there would be, but,
Yeah.
but there really is. So we're hoping to get the old dudes and dudettes.
And I
to
can
come.
tell you're still singing.
I love to sing.
Yes,
I'm not good, but I love to sing
yes, no,
anyway.
that's what counts.
And then I went into museum work. I intended to be a history teacher, and somehow I got diverted into history museums. And what I like about them is the opportunity for people to learn history without it seeming to be onerous. You know, when I was in high school, you learned names and dates and places.
Yes.
The names of the great men, the dates of the wars, you know, that kind of stuff. And it was very interesting to me, but it's not interesting to a lot of people. So the idea that we can personalize history
Yes.
is what attracts me to museum work, because
Yes.
everyone will see something in a museum that's familiar.
Great. The path from New Jersey to the Twin Cities.
Oh, a diversion through Washington, D.C. and Pierre, South Dakota, and I ended up here in 1997 at the Minnesota Historical Society.
Oh, great.
Where I was a curator, and that was a very interesting experience for me, and I learned a lot about my craft there.
Wonderful. And tell us about the oversight of the museum. Do you have a board of directors
We
and
have-
how that works?
we have a board.
And the overall funding.
Yeah, as an independent institution, we have a board of directors who are responsible for
They hire
overseeing
you.
the organization. They're my boss, they
Yes.
hired me, and I'm in charge of the museum staff.
Yes.
And our funding is, we have to raise it, we have to earn it, and we have been successful getting some grants. Mostly government grants, a couple of legacy grants, a couple of grants from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Those are the ways that we fund the museum. So it is always, as it is with most small nonprofits, it's a real scramble, pretty much all the time.
Okay. What do you enjoy the most about your work as the director?
I like learning new stories from people. People bring me things, and like the medallion, one thing sets them off on a half-hour story about their ancestor or themselves.
Yes.
And they went to a jamboree, they went on a camping trip, they had this wonderful experience. That's what I tend to hang on to. I have a great memory for stories, and so
Are you able to record some of these then too?
we have recorded some of them.
Yeah.
We're ready to go, but
Yes.
we haven't always done it, and we need to do more of it. One of the
Yeah,
best.
I wish you the best in making that happen. I have enjoyed going to museums where you can see firsthand, that story that's preserved
Right.
on audio, maybe video,
Right.
and especially with your passion for learning more about people and how they want to open up. So maybe
Right.
that can happen as well.
One of the best recordings that we have is an audio tape that was recorded in the early 90s, I think, with a scout who had grown up in St. Paul and he was one of the first 10 Eagle Scouts in St. Paul. He was a fire by friction champion. He joined a troop in St. Anthony Park in 1915. And he was a bugler and bugled for the war bond rallies. So his story allows us to talk about the medallion in another way, what it was like for the boys who went out, and he would blow his bugle and everyone would be inspired and the dollars would just fly out of their pockets and the purchase would be done.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what that would be like.
Right.
If you've ever been at a rally or something where everyone is just the crowd is totally one
Yeah.
and of one mind, you can imagine what that would be like.
Well, thank you so much for sharing insights about the museum, and we just have time for any concluding comments about the museum that you'd like to share?
Well, I am hoping that all of your constituents take the time to stop by the museum, because even if you were never in Girl Scouting or Boy Scouting, I think we have something for them.
Right.
I think we have a story that will capture their imagination. They'll be able to see how kids fit into history. I'm confident that they would be very interested in what we have. And if they were in Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, then they really need to come.
Yes, and bring someone with you too.
That's right.
And if you had that tie, bring your stories. So.
There you go.
Well, Claudia Nicholson, thank you so much. We wish you continued success.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And viewers, if you have questions of Claudia, please stop by. The door is open, and or send her an email, but I hope you can visit the museum. It's a great place. If you have questions of me, give me a call. My cell phone is 651-770-0283, or you can give me an email. For your Capital What's Up, I'm Chuck Wiger. Thank you very much for watching.